Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, it's great to meet you. I'm Stella, and I love making miniatures for my Barbie's dollhouse using mostly cardstock. In today's video, I'll show you how to make this miniature swing sofa for your dolls, and as always, I have a free printable template to help you make your own version. You'll find all the info and the download link in the video, so now, let's get started. We'll begin by cutting this part of the template 3 or 4 times, and we'll stack all the layers together until we get to a final piece that's 2 mm in thickness. And as usual, I recommend using cardstock from old packaging for this, well, for starters, it's basically free, but also it's quite thick and yet very easy to cut. You can use a cutting machine if you have one, or simply a pen knife or scissors, and for small parts like this little hole, an awl or manicure scissors. Next, we'll cut all these strips 2 or 3 times each, and once again we'll stack all the layers to make the final pieces a bit thicker. And here's a little trick. If you're the lucky owner of a cutting machine with a heavy-duty blade, or even better, a laser cutter, you can glue a few layers of cardstock together first, then cut the thicker pieces directly. This saves a lot of time, and you can still recycle old packaging instead of having to buy wood or other expensive materials. I actually feel so silly not to have thought of it sooner. Also, just a quick plug, you can find all the digital templates for cutting my project with a cutting machine in my shop, linked in the description. We'll attach the resulting slats to the base we prepared earlier this way. And then we'll repeat the same process for the opposite side. The final piece should be 5 mm thick, and to make it look like wood, we'll start by coating it with a layer of acrylic gesso. This will make the cardstock sturdier, and if we use a brush with stiff bristles, it'll create this nice wood grain-like texture. After that, we'll simply have to paint the surface in a nice shade of brown acrylic. And as always, I'll have the colors I used linked in the description, along with all the other supplies I used for this project. Once the paint's dry, I highly recommend sandwiching the piece between 2 sheets of parchment paper and placing it under something heavy like a big book for a few hours. I do this with every element of my miniatures because the weight flattens the cardstock and the parchment paper absorbs any leftover moisture from the paint, so it stays nice and flat. Next, we'll cut this little strip a few times, and yet again we'll stack all the layers to get to a final piece that's around 3 mm thick. Just like we did with the first part of our swing, we'll coat this bar with acrylic gesso first. Then we'll go over it with acrylic paint. We'll glue the finished piece to the front of the previous one, like this. Next, we'll cut this strip 3 or 4 times and we'll stack the layers together. We'll repeat the same step for this part and for this one, which we'll have to make twice. All bars should be roughly 2 mm thick, and we'll have to paint them with acrylic gesso and then brown acrylic. We'll glue the resulting pieces to the bottom of the part we assembled earlier, bending this longer bar so that it follows the curved edge of the base. With the seat ready, it's time to start working on the swing's backrest. First, we'll cut this part, and this time I suggest using a lightweight type of cardstock since it's thinner and easier to bend. Then we'll cut this little rectangle 2 or 3 times and we'll stack the layers together. We repeat this process to make a total of 30 little slats, which we'll glue to both sides of the cardstock pattern this way. Once again, we'll coat the finished piece with acrylic gesso first. And then with acrylic paint. We'll attach the backrest to the swing seat, making sure to align each slat with the corresponding one on the seat, basically following its curved edge. Next, we'll cut this part a few times and we'll stack all the layers together until we reach a thickness of roughly 4 mm. We'll paint the whole surface with acrylic gesso and brown acrylic. And then we'll glue it to the top of the swing's back. Next up, the armrests. We'll start by cutting this part several times and we'll stack all the layers to get to a thickness of about 4 millimeters. We'll repeat the same process for this part. And we'll paint both pieces with acrylic gesso and then brown acrylic. Next, we'll cut this part 5 or 6 times. We'll stack the layers together and repeat to make a second identical piece. We'll paint both elements black. And then we'll combine the resulting pieces, which should be about 3 millimeters in thickness, with the previous parts. At this point, we can attach the armrests to the rest of the swing structure. To make the hanging cords for our swing sofa, we'll use some twine. We'll simply have to cut 2 pieces of twine, and an easy way to figure out the length is to measure how high you want the swing to hang from the ceiling, double that, and then add about 10 centimeters. Next, we'll coat the ends of each twine piece with a bit of white glue, and then we'll pinch them flat with our fingers. This will keep the twine from fraying, and it'll also make the ends stiffer so they'll effortlessly slide right into the holes in the swing. We'll have to slide the twine through the first hole in the armrest, then into the hole in the seat, out of the second hole in the seat, and finally through the second hole in the armrest. We'll repeat this for both twines, and you can totally leave them as is, but I decided to tie a knot a few centimeters from the armrests. It's totally optional, but I think it adds a cute touch. Time to make a little mattress for our tiny swing. We'll start by cutting this part a couple of times, and for this one I suggest switching to corrugated cardboard since we need something thick but not too heavy. You could also use a kitchen sponge if you can find one big enough, or even packing foam. We'll stack the cardboard layers together like this. And then we'll need a piece of fabric. I always believe in recycling, so mine comes from an old set of napkins. We'll cover the top and bottom of the cardboard piece with the fabric, folding the excess over the edges and gluing it in place. The final piece should be 1.5 centimeters thick. Next, we'll cut this part out of copy paper twice, and we'll cover both strips with fabric. Then we'll glue the strips to the edges of the mattress, starting from the center of the shorter sides. With the mattress ready, let's move on to the pillows. To make them, we'll need some fabric scraps, either solid colors or with small print patterns. Now, I wanted to make some orange pillows, but I didn't have any fabric in that color, can you believe it? So I went ahead and designed a few simple patterns that I then printed on white fabric. I used my M1 Ultra since it has a printing module that works on a variety of materials including fabric, but I believe other inkjet printers should work too. I've included the graphics in my template just in case. I gave the fabric a quick press with an iron just to set the print, and then I trimmed the excess. With the fabric ready, we'll simply have to fold it with the printed side facing in, and then we'll stitch it around the edges, leaving a small opening on one side. This will let us turn the pillowcase right side out, and then stuff it with either fiber fill or cotton. You can even use a cotton pad as long as you kind of fluff it up a bit first. Lastly, we'll just have to sew or glue the little opening shut. And I must confess, I got a little carried away with designing pillow patterns and probably made way too many. And just like that, our miniature swing sofa is ready. Stay tuned because I've got more patio themed projects coming your way soon. As promised, here's the link to the free printable template, and if you want to find out how you can make a whole dollhouse patio using mostly cardstock, you should watch this video next. And this is all for today. Until next time, bye!